say, just, if you weren't here last week, on the board, I have my information, my email, my name. Right below that, it says Jeffrey Mallets, and there's an email for him. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. He's the new Tracy Gentry. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She was the person in the career services team that she often would come to classes and do a little presentation for 5 minutes or 10 minutes for all of us. She left and he's now the new one. What they do, I mean, their job is to connect students with companies that are looking for students, to hire for internships or whatever, for whatever reason, right? He might come in during the semester and do a little presentation or whatever, but all I would say is write down his email. It's J.H. Mallet there. Write that down, and I would actually just send him an email, even, whenever you get a chance, just send him an email and tell him your name and that I told you about him, and just make a connection with him. They'll have your name and tell him you're interested in whatever information you can get about internships. That's what his job really is. So, if you remember Tracy, that's kind of what she used to do, and I think she just moved on somewhere else, but he's the new one now. So, that's there. I don't know, Sarah, do you want to mention that you wrote there or no?
Oh, I just have a Discord group where I post videos of the lecture if you need to rewatch it again, and homework help with other students or anything that you need.
I don't know if you wanted to, I didn't mean you had to, but.
If anyone wants to.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
So thoughtful. All right, so, again, just because some of you weren't here last week, here's D2L. What I was gonna show you is, most of you have been in my class before, a couple of you may not have been in class. But each session is here in the content page. I have stuff available for you to download. There's no textbook. I have Word documents that you can download every session, or just read them here in the viewer. Right here's a Word document. I can click on it here in D2L, and you can view it here. Or you can download it as an actual Word document, store it, do whatever you want, okay? So that's why there's no textbook, because I wrote all these. You're gonna see it today. If you haven't seen it yet, most of you are already been working on it, as I can see, but there also sometimes will be part files that you'll download. And we are gonna start with some information for our project today from a part file, so I have that available for you to download. So, you click on these little arrows and you download, and it puts it in the downloads folder here on your Explorer window, and you can put it wherever you want. I would recommend you create a folder on the machine and store everything there, and also make a copy on a thumb drive, or send yourself a copy in email or whatever. It's always good to have more than one copy, because we know how sometimes things go wrong, and things get lost. But every session, I told you 5. You're a little weird. I'm kidding. I don't care. I just started.
No, I know.
I just meant to embarrass you. So every session we're gonna do that. I only make it available to you that session though, at 8 o'clock in the morning. So this was available at 8 o'clock this morning, this part file on my Word document. But, I like to demo it, so, because there's a lot of little things that I wanna show you and talk about that aren't in the document. Right? A lot of the reasons behind why we're doing certain things, okay? And other little helpful hints that I didn't write it in the document. This being not a real basic NX class, my instructions don't have every little detailed step in it. So, there's little things that I'll bring up while I'm demonstrating it that you wouldn't read in the Word document. But it's written so that you can, all by yourself, open up that document, do everything it says, and get everything exactly right. But again, I demonstrate along with that. And the other thing I was just gonna mention, I think I might have said this last time, but when you go to submit things, notice this one's called 1A, and then next week there's a 1B, and then there's a 1C. Well, in the assignments folder, the assignments tab, there's only an exercise 1, so you won't submit anything until we finish A, B, and C. You want to submit, obviously save it somewhere, save the work you're doing, but there's nothing to submit. You can submit it if you want. If I see you submitted something, I'll take a look at it, remark on it or whatever, but officially, we're not gonna turn in anything, we're working with the same data for 1A, 1B, and 1C. You're just gonna continue working on the same stuff. So you just keep overwriting it, and then when you're, after we're done with 1C, that's the stuff you'll submit. And FYI, it's gonna be an assembly with, one part in it at that point. So, I sort of mentioned this earlier today and last week. This is what it's gonna look like when we're done with the whole semester. Today, we're just working on this one part called the floor pan. As the semesters go by, as the sessions go by, we're gonna work and create these different cross members. Seems like simple stuff, but there's a lot of links between surfaces, they call them wavelengths, and a lot of little details about how we're gonna create this stuff that, it's a little bit time consuming, so. And it is, everything we're doing here it came from a person who wrote the class that actually worked in an underbody team. So it's stuff that they really do. I mean, it might change a little bit in time, but it's kind of techniques and processes that they really do, so it's kind of valuable. So anyway, this is what it's gonna look like when you're done. I don't need to show that anymore. I'm actually gonna close that. I'm not gonna save it. Now I have a copy of something already created for the first steps, but that's just so I don't have to do it while you're watching me do every little step. I'm gonna do this. I will pretend we don't see that. Okay. So I logged in my instructions. Like I said, not every single thing's spelled out. So for example, step 1 says, create a new assembly with a new part in it. Right? Well, the assumption is, this isn't your first NX class, this isn't your first rodeo, you should know how to do that, right? Well, I know that could be true, but, a lot of people hadn't done it in a while, or you just don't remember those. No, I'm not worried about that. You can, even if I am assuming something when I do a demo and you don't, I'm assuming something wrong, that you don't know something that I'm assuming, just ask me later, that's fine, don't be afraid to ask. I'm not gonna say, no, you should know this, I'm not gonna help you. I'll never do that, so. To make an assembly, why is this part still showing up there? I know that's still showing up there, I guess, I'll just pretend you don't see that, so I'll get something like that, right? So to make the assembly with the floor pan part in it, we're gonna go to File New. Some of this I'm gonna do kind of fast because you probably do remember some of it. We go to File New, and it brings up the File New window where we have all these templates. Pretty much most people that work in NX in the design world, they mostly use this one called Model. And even inside of Model, they mostly use the template called Model or the template called Assembly. These other ones are a little bit more specialized. Some of these are, you can kind of see what they're for. There's press and die, validation and whatnot, and manufacturing and inspection and things like that, but those are a little bit more specialized. Everything we're gonna do in this session, we're gonna use the Model tab up on top, and then when we create parts, it's either gonna be the one assembly we create or the models, which are the parts in the assembly, right? So first thing I'll create is assembly. I'm gonna name it a little bit different than the instructions because I already have one in my session with the correct name and it won't let me do it twice. So it says in the instructions, call it floor pan assembly. So I'll just call it floor PN assembly or something like that, just so it's a slightly different name. I should spell it correctly if I do that. And you remember you gotta point it at some folder that you wanna store it in. So I'll hit OK. If you recall in NX, maybe a little refresher here, when you create an assembly, or when you create a new part, it's actually an NX part we're creating, but when you create a new part that you use the assembly template on, by default, it thinks you wanna add parts to your assembly right away. I can look at this. Okay? Well, we're not adding any existing parts. We're gonna put a new part in this, but it's gonna be brand new. This window doesn't do that. So just cancel it. The template just said do that. It's part of a script. When you start a new model using the assembly template, there's a little script that says, as soon as it's created, go to that window to add an existing part. Well, you don't have to do it, so we canceled it. Now here's the part that, if you weren't sitting here a few minutes ago, you'll run into this. It says to create a new part in the assembly. Well, if you remember from the old days, especially if you were in NX11, which we had here last, you went to assemblies and we're creating a new component. I'm gonna actually first make a change in mine. Don't worry about what I'm doing here, but this is what you will see. Thinking, well, this is what I always did, I wanna add a new component, right? And I guess I'll, as a reminder, that's bold, that means it's the work part, it's active, that means when I add a new component means child, that means it's gonna put it inside of that. So if I go there, this might look different than what you remember. It says new component, well, yeah, it is what I wanted, but there's no place in there to really, I mean, it does say component name there, but that's not exactly what I'm looking for. It's really the part, I'm creating a new part, and I wanna give it a name, and I wanna point it at a folder, because we have to store it somewhere. This is not the window I'm expecting. So, you're gonna cancel that. I don't have this in the instructions, by the way. I might put it in there now, but it's too late for you guys. You only have to do this once. Go to File, Preferences, Assemblies, okay? And in this window, in NX 2212, the preference windows kind of look at this, they're a little bit more contemporary now. Go to the component item here, and there's a lot of things in this window, but we're trying to create a new component. And it says model here, that's the setting that brought up the window that I wasn't familiar with. I want the window I'm familiar with. If I go to the pull down, there it is, select from file new. Usually when you create a new part in an assembly, you're creating something new, so it's like the file new window. That's what we're used to, that's what we want. So I hit okay. Now, on this machine, as long as I keep logging in, they don't reload the software on me, it should be correct the rest of the time. Okay, if not, then you know how to go back and change it. But now if I do what I tried to do before, new component, see, now this is what I expected. I wanna give it a name and point it at a folder. By default, it's going to the same folder I had before. But this is gonna be a model template. Technically, I like to always say this, it doesn't really mean much, but every one of those templates actually creates the same thing. It's a model, or I should say it's a part file. It's an NX part file. It just has different little scripts that run, and maybe the settings are different in each one. But every one of these I could use and make a model. Every one of these I can use and make an assembly, right? But because it's a model, that's gonna kind of behave the way we want. So I set it to model. I don't think I said this when everybody's here. Everything we're doing this semester is in millimeters. I should have said that when I did the assembly. Because you can't have an assembly that's in inches, but then put a part in it that's in millimeters. It won't let you do that. So let's see, I'll give this another kind of pretend name, just because I have one already. I'll just do 4-pan, like that, FL pan. It's supposed to be 4-pan, right? And I'm gonna put it in the same folder, and I'll hit OK. This is something that you should be familiar with, even if you've done this before. It's always been confusing why this window comes up. We're about to add a new part into our assembly. This window is there just in case we had some other parts already in the window and I wanted to pick like a solid body that was gonna become this new part. I don't know why this comes up by default. This seems like something that doesn't happen that often. They just make it a default. You just ignore it kind of and hit OK. You don't cancel it, you hit OK. You don't pick anything, you hit OK. And there you have an assembly with a part in it. And if you remember, when you put a component inside of another part, the little symbol next to it becomes 3 little cubes instead of 1. And then the one that's an individual part looks like that. So, that was the one I just wanted to walk through and fake it. Well, actually, let me do one more thing. The next step in the instructions, all that was just for step 1. The next step says, in the floor pan part, create 5 feature groups like that. Okay, feature groups are like folders, right? Remember, here's the floor pan. Inside of it, I have to activate it first. It's called work part. I double click on it. It's bold. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the part navigator to see what's inside that part. And there's no feature groups. My model history just has this CSIS. And by the way, you see the WCS there? That's that red, green, and blue thing. We're not using that the whole time in the semester. I don't know if you remember what that is. It's kind of an old school symbol. If you hit the W key on your keyboard, that turns it off. It's like a toggle, the W key. We're just gonna use these types of things. Datum coordinate systems, or CSIS, like an axis system. Anyway, create feature group. In the instructions it says go to menu, format, group. That means this guy, menu, and then format, and then group, and then there's feature group, okay? But And it would work, well, I guess, I'll do one that way. Menu, format, group, feature group, seems like it's the old fashioned way to get to that command. Everything in that menu is what used to be along the top in NX way back in, I think NX 7.5 or something like that, a long time ago. So for people that are coming from a long time ago working at NX, if you wanna use the old menu, you go to that menu there. But anyway, you create a feature group, you give it a name. So for example, the first one will be inputs, like it says. And it's gonna be at the first level, so here it says top level. So if I hit OK, there's my first feature group. That's a folder that we're gonna put stuff in. There's another one at the same level underneath it called main shape, which has stuff inside of it. If you wanna do that, you can go to menu, same place, menu, format, group, feature group. If you wanna put something inside one, there's not supposed to be anything in inputs, but if I did wanna put something in inputs like first inputs or something like that, you could say, put that inside of inputs. So it'll hold on, if you hit OK, then it puts one inside the other, all right? So, I didn't do that exactly correctly, but that's how you do it. What I'm trying to say is, you just put feature groups in, you can nest them or put them at the top level, right? But instead of using this menu thing, you can, I mean, we're gonna be adding feature groups throughout the semester, so you're gonna have to come back to this a lot. Or, you do like I did, if I go to my home tab, I have feature group command right there, same one. Right, do whatever I want, but instead of going here and trying to find it, just create the feature group there, or not create it there, but add it there. And somewhere you're going, okay, I wanna do that, but I forgot how to do that, right? Easiest way to do that is just put your cursor anywhere in the ribbon, right click, go to customize. Brings up a customized window. Kind of a magic window. When this window is up, you can drag stuff around and put it in places and take things away. What you'll do is search for whatever you want right here in the commands, such as feature group. And it's a dynamic search, so I didn't even have to type the whole thing in. If you find one you like, maybe I'll pick something different. But you'll do feature group, and you'll drag it wherever you want. I'll do something like law extension. Right there. Here's law extension. So if this were feature group, you actually grab it from here, your left button, and drag it where you want. If you let it go, there it is. Now when I cancel that window, I have law extension right there. That's how I get feature group there. You don't have to do it, it just saves time. You know, as time goes by and you're actually doing this stuff, you'll know what tools you like a lot, and you're gonna use them a lot. You wanna put them somewhere that you're gonna easily find them. And if you do wanna get rid of them, just so you know, I just gotta bring up the customized window again. With this window being up, as you saw, I can drag things up here, but I can also drag things off of there. But that window has to be up to do that. So is the customized window. All right. So, I'm actually gonna close that and not save it, because I already have one made the right way. Floor pan assembly with the floor pan part in it. So I activate the part and I go to my part navigator, there's the feature groups the way it's supposed to be. Okay, that was step 2. Hopefully everything will go a little faster than that. That was you know, kind of administrative stuff that has a lot of these little things to be aware of. Of course, now that I opened up a different part, I gotta turn off my WCS again. Then it says, hey, download that part that I gave you in D2L and open it into NX. Not in this window, not add it as a child, but open it separately into NX. So if I go to File Open, if I downloaded it, I actually have it right here. Floor pan reference. I'm just opening it. I want the file open. Now I have 2 different files open in my NX window. All right, I got these tabs along the top here. So that's what it looks like. The concept that we're following in this exercise is basically, well, yeah, we have this old floor pan, and we want to make one just like that. But if you look in the tree, part navigator, it's one single non-parametric body. It's done. It doesn't have any parametric behind it. Okay? It's just a sheet. I can't double click and edit that radius right there or the angle of that wall. I can't. It's all one single sheet that has no math behind it. Well, we want to use that as a reference. We're going to kind of borrow it, but we're going to make a parametric floor pan, an entire floor pan. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to borrow stuff from there. Yeah, I guess I can just show you that that first part of it. It's just a body, so that makes it kinda easy. We're just gonna get a copy of that and put it in our working file, okay? So from here, you can actually click right in the tree, you just right click and it's very simple, do a copy. Then you go to the other window. I'm still in the floor pan part, that's where I want it to go, but we want it to go in inputs. We're gonna have a copy of that non-parametric sheet body as one of our inputs. And then that way we'll be able to reference it while we're making the real geometry. So I wanna paste it, but I want it to go in here. Remember, you have to make that active, right? The other word I'm looking for, it's a simple word, current. Not current, but active, okay? I don't know why I couldn't remember that name. Current is for feature groups. I'm sorry, active is for feature groups. If I right click on a feature group, I can make it current, but that's not what I want. I wanna make it active. Active is only available for feature groups like folders. That means anything I create right now will go into that folder. It turns green. Everything after it kind of becomes deactive. I don't know a better word to think of. So whatever I create is gonna go in the green set. And then I wanna paste, okay? In NX, when you wanna paste something that you've already copied, you just put your cursor on the graphic area, right click and do a paste. There it is, okay? This window always comes up. When you're pasting in NX, it always has some questions. But because that thing we copied was one single feature with no parents, no references, no math, no parametrics, all we have to do is just say, okay. And it brings in that, and you're thinking, that doesn't look right. It does look kind of weird, doesn't it? I got something missing there. Well, that's just some glitchy thing. It depends how far I was zoomed in when I first created this, okay? There's a really easy way to fix that, but all you do is the reframe. They don't call it a reframe, they call it a fit all in, or a fit, I'm sorry. Just do a fit and that clears that up, that little graphic thing. CATIA is called fit all in, and NX is called fit. I would've called it reframe, but that's not what they call it. So I have now in my inputs feature group, I have this non-parametric body. We're only gonna just borrow it to create a brand new real floor pan with parametric geometry on top of it. Okay? And the way we're doing it, yeah, I'm showing you step by step how to do that, but there's dozens of ways we can get the same results, but the way I'm doing it is, it's about the simplest way. We're gonna fake in some stuff that lies right on top of this and sort of looks exactly like this. We're gonna measure some things on here, all right? One thing while we're doing all this though is, our goal is really when we're done and we have our entire new floor pan created that's all parametric, we won't need this body anymore, so we're gonna wanna delete it. Well, in order to delete that, I have to make sure that nothing's linked to it. So even this very first step, and actually the first step I'm gonna make is if you look at our tree here, actually let me update to the end for a second. Make last feature current, they don't call it update to end anymore. We have these feature groups and you can kind of see how we're dividing up or organizing the geometry. There's the main shape, this thing is the main shape, okay? We're gonna have an area called the main slabs, the tunnel, and the sill weld flange. The main slabs are the big flat areas, the real big flat area at like the floor. Then there's that little upturn, and then there's a tiny little part of it right here, dash panel. Okay, and then those being blended together, that's the main slabs. The tunnel is this thing in the middle. We're developing those separately and then putting them together. And then the weld flange is actually these little flanges on both sides. There's one going along this way, on that side I should say, and then there's one on this side. Those are gonna be created separately in their own feature group and then combined with the rest of the part. Right. So, the first thing we're gonna make is the main slabs. So in my instructions it says activate the main slabs. Well, what I mean is right click and go to active. So now whatever I create is gonna go inside the main slabs. And if you look, I really wanna make a main slab that's a modifiable surface. So we're actually gonna do an extrude that we can modify later if we need to, based on something that tells us where the original one is, right? We could do this a lot of different ways. I could just draw a line out in space, or I can measure how high is this flat area from the XY plane, and create a line over here somewhere, and then extrude it, right? Well, the way I chose to do it in this exercise is like so. I'm gonna go to the line command, so I go to curve, tab, here's the line command, and you gotta look at this kinda close. I'll make this a little bit bigger. I mean, I tried to word it so you can grasp what I'm saying. It says, select the endpoints of the fillet edge as indicated. What I'm trying to make is a line that's on this main flat, right at the bottom of that little fillet, in a kind of a location where it's straight. So in other words, I'm gonna make a line, but it does say, access the line command and turn off the associative button at the bottom. Okay? Turn it off. It's not gonna be an associative line. And when I say pick endpoints, I mean, see this edge right here? Right, you know, remember we got the snap points, okay? Usually this one's turned on, endpoint, so when you go to hover over something that has an endpoint, you can pick its endpoint. So basically that little point right there, when you see the diamond, click on it. That's the first point. For the end option, I'm gonna go the other end of that straight edge. I'm going kinda slow with this, but right about there. No, be careful, because I'm on the edge, but I'm not on the endpoint. Now I'm actually on the endpoint, right there when you see that diamond. And I hesitated, and a lot of times that's frustrating to people. Actually, it's not bad, because it shows you what your cursor was on, and it makes it even easier to pick what you wanted, right? You want the endpoint of that edge or that edge? I want that edge right there. So that gave me that point, okay? So I'm creating a line, I got the 2 points. It does say in the instructions, and a lot of these steps are like this, make it look like this picture. So in other words, I want you to drag it a little bit rearward and a little bit forward, kind of like it shows there. Well, everybody's gonna drag it slightly different lengths. But what it does say is be careful, drag the cone, there's a cone here, and then the sphere. There's cubes there, don't drag the cubes. I'll show you what happens. If you drag the cube, then the cube is where I picked. See, now I'm not on that endpoint anymore. I do want to be on the endpoint. So you don't drag the cube, that's how we're lined up. You drag the cone. That's the endpoint. Yeah, the end option. And according to the picture, it's something like that. A little bit, I always go a little bit out in front of the whole thing. And in the back, grab the sphere. Same thing, don't grab the cube, that's on the endpoint. The sphere is just for the line length itself. So it's always, anytime you're working with lines and curves and you want to edit the ends of them, not where they are, but how long they are, always grab the sphere and the cone, okay? So, I don't know, that looks pretty good. I'll do okay. Well, now I said we underline main slabs, right? Just double checking, yeah, it's right on that flat, yep, that's good. But I don't see a plus sign next to my main slabs feature group. That was active, and I created a line, I see it. Okay. Remember, this should be a refresher. NX, I talked about this in the earliest classes. For some reason, even in NX 2212, when you make wireframe that's non-parametric, non-associative, it doesn't show up as a feature in the part navigator. It's not in the model history. I don't know why, I still don't know why. Sheet bodies, they show up in the tree. That thing right there, that's a sheet body that's non-parametric, but it's in the tree. Wireframe, if it's non-parametric, it doesn't show up there. Okay. Now, why do we make it non-parametric? Because I don't want it linked to that. It's exactly on that, which is what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to build a brand new one right on top of that existing floor pan, but we don't want it linked. So I could actually delete this floor pan and that line would still be fine. But just to finish this thought, it does mention this later in the instructions. If you do have wireframe that's non-parametric, you could still find a reference to it. In the folders up above the model history, there's now something called non-timestamp geometry. Non-timestamp means it's not associative. It's not part of a history of anything, okay? But it is there, it's a line, and you can hide it and show it, okay? So just remember that. We're gonna create a few lines like that. They'll all be up here under non-timestamp geometry. It doesn't mention that right away, so a lot of times you think, well, I don't see it in the tree, so I guess I don't have it, but it's there. Okay. So anyway, now we're gonna make an extrude. It tells you to do an extrude, and it says the same thing, drag it. So it kinda looks like the picture. We're gonna overbuild it a little bit about beyond the edges of the floor pan. We're trying to make the main flat. So we go to extrude, let's see, that's in the home tab. Here's extrude. I like to reset this window just in case I did something odd in the settings. Last time I used it, we just wanna use the default settings. We don't want it, even though there's, it's a sheet body, so it's not gonna try to unite it to anything, but a good habit, when you're doing an extrude and you don't want it to do a Boolean operation like unite or subtract, set it to none. That's actually a best practice at most places, because the system is gonna try to guess what you want. It's better if you set it to none if you really don't want it to be Boolean. Okay, so set that to none. And actually another best practice, it doesn't really say this is just something good to know. Under settings, it says the body type is set to solid. If you remember extrude, if you extrude an open profile like a straight line, it won't be a solid, it'll be a sheet body. And we want it to be a sheet body. So even though it's gonna make it a sheet body because it's open, you should tell it to be a sheet body. Anytime you make a sheet body with extrude, set the setting that way, even if it's gonna do it anyway. Just because when things change later on, that thing might, that line I made might somehow become a closed profile and turn it into a solid. We don't want that. So the curve will be the line I made. To make the extrude is pretty easy. I just spent a lot of time talking about settings. For the direction, I tell you to use the ZX or XZ plane, or you can use the Y vector, same thing. So it's gonna go that way. And then it just says drag it, approximately as shown in the picture. And in my picture, it shows -900 and then 600. So, you know, I don't care for the numbers, right? It's just overbuilt beyond the limits of that. Then we hit OK. And you can see it's going right through the main slab of the floor pan. And we're supposed to name that horizontal slab. That did show up here. It's an extrude. We're gonna name it. NX does have a rename. I was about to say, remember, there's no rename in NX, but I was teaching CATIA yesterday. That's what it was going to rename. Here there is a rename. What did I just say? It's called horizontal slab.
Sorry, how'd you rename that again?
Just right click and go to rename.
Okay, cool.
In CATIA, it's right click and properties. That's why.
Right.
And I was because I taught it yesterday in the other class, I was thinking it's properties, but it's not. It's rename. There's a rename right there. Okay. So, and this is just like other classes I've had or projects we have where it seems like we're naming everything. We're not gonna name everything, but we're naming some things that are common that we're gonna have to come back to a lot. And it makes it a lot easier for you if you look for a certain name, instead of extrude, what was it, extrude 2, extrude 5? Well, I forget which one it was, but if you got the name, you know better, right? All right, now we're gonna make this wall, a little footrest wall. What we're gonna call it, okay? Well, again, I wanna make something that matches this. We could do this a few different ways. I could draw another line here and try to extrude it that way, but then I'd have to figure out the direction of extruding. Well, the way I have you do it here is create a plane, with datum plane command, okay? I wanna pick something on this gray non-parametric part, but however I make the plane, even the plane, I can make it a few different ways. But however I do it, when I pick this, I don't wanna be linked. So even this plane is gonna be non-associative. Now when you make a plane non-associative, you get a little message, it says a fixed plane will be created. That's okay, that's what I said to do, right? The way I have you do it is through 3 points. Or actually no, inferred. You can pick 3 points with inferred. There is a curves and points one, but inferred works just as good. And you know, any 3 points will define a plane. So if I carefully pick 3 of the corners of this space right here, like that one. You know, the first one I picked, it's guessing, oh, you wanted a plane perpendicular to that edge, right? No, that's not what I wanted. But just hold on, I'm gonna make some more picks. If I make a second pick, now it drew a line between those 2 points and it's doing a plane perpendicular to that line, but I don't want that either. I can still pick another object. If I pick a third point, then it says, okay, then that defines a plane. And, you know, that's close enough for what we want. It's right on that planar face. And, you know, in the instructions, when you see the size of it, like so, don't worry if yours isn't the right size. It depends how close you are zoomed in or out, right? And you can always make it smaller if you want it to look more like the thing, or you can make it bigger if you want, right? It's up to you. You can always edit that later. I'm gonna hit OK. I think one of the reasons I don't use through object on that one is because I think, and this happens in the real world a lot, sometimes you get a surface like that, we copied it from somewhere else, it's from old data, sometimes it's kinda crappy and it's not real planar right there. So if you do a plane through object, it has to be a planar object, and I don't think that face right there is actually planar. Doesn't matter. So that's why I had you do can't talk, through 3 points. Or using inferred, I picked 3 points. Let's see. Oh, then we're gonna, now to make this surface, we're gonna make a law extension, which is like a linear sweep. I'm gonna make a guide. I'm gonna make a guide going across my main slab right there, right about here, and then sweep a line along that guide at an angle. Well, that guide is gonna be where this plane intersects our original slab. So I'm gonna go to the curve tab, intersection curve, okay? This is gonna be parametric. Most stuff, just the starting few things we're gonna make non-parametric, non-associative, but most of these are gonna be associative, okay? So I'm gonna intersect that plane. I'm using select face here and select face there. That slab, it's already previewing it, looks good, I'll hit okay. Oh, the associative was in the middle. So there's that, because those two elements are mine. We're gonna keep those, that plane and that surface. So what I make what I make out of those will be parametric, associative. So there's an intersection, and it actually is an intersection. If I would have turned off associative, that would be a dumb line, and it would have went up here. But I want that to stay associative. Because I might, after we get our whole floor pan done, we might change that plane, or we might change that surface. And I want the intersection to move with it, all right? So we got the intersection curve. Now we're gonna do the law extension. And you should have done this in NX2 class, but you might not remember it. So if I go to the surface tab, here's law extension. Like I said, it's like sweeping a line along a guide, okay? We have, and that line is gonna be at an angle to something. So basically, think of a line going up this way, along the edge of this. Okay, whatever that angle is. Well, actually, the way we made that plane, so on a line, the line's gonna be the same as that plane, really. It's gonna be the same angle as that plane. We can use that. There's a way to, this is basically, what do you measure your angle to? Some face or a vector? Because we have a plane, it's gonna seem odd, because we have a plane, vector will work better. I'll show you what I mean. What's the guide curve? It's gonna be that intersection I just made, okay? Your angle's gonna be with respect to some vector. When it says specify vector, you can pick a plane. Because a plane, it's a real element, and it knows that there's a perpendicular to the plane. So if you pick a plane, the vector's gonna be normal to it, perpendicular to it. So if I pick that plane, and see how it's set to 0 degrees? Right? Let me make that a little bit longer so you can see it. 0 degrees is perpendicular to that plane. So we want it actually on the plane. So that would be 90 degrees. So I'm gonna make it 90. It's a handy way to make a law extension. If you have a plane that you want to line up a surface with, it's a handy way to do it with law extension. Use the plane itself for the vector and then just go 90 degrees. All right. And I do tell you, I give you specific lengths. I couldn't remember if I just told you to drag it or not. It says go 500 for the length law. In NX you can hit enter. And then for the opposite side here, right? There's, I don't know if you remember this with law extension, there's one-sided where it is only just going one way, it doesn't go the other way. We like to overbuild a little bit. Symmetric means it's going the same distance both ways. Well, we don't need that much. Asymmetric means, well, you can go in the other direction, but you can give it a different number in that direction. And that one's supposed to be 50, according to what I wrote, so that's what counts. So I hit okay. So now I have a surface that's modifiable. Law extensions are very popular because there's a lot of things you can modify them with when the part has to change. You can change the angle, you can change the length, right? You can change what they're linked to. So there's that law extension. That's another thing we're gonna actually name. That's our footrest surface. Okay? So now I have the main horizontal, or called the horizontal slab, and then I got one called the footrest surface. We're gonna make one more just for this little dash panel area here. That's what we call it. Some people say, isn't that a firewall thing? Well, there's different names. Depending on who you talk to in the businesses, they use different names that they learn. Now we're gonna make, kind of the same way we just did here, I'm gonna make a plane that matches that flat, because I need a wall for that little flat, all right? This time I tell you to create a plane. But this time I tell you to use through object, and I was gonna test this out. See, that will let me pick that plane. Well, I guess it does let me pick that plane. I was thinking it didn't let me pick that plane before. But it does let me pick that plane. So I'm gonna click on it. And again, the size that that symbol, it's just a symbol. The size that it shows up might be different if you're zoomed way in or zoomed way out. Okay? So if yours looks like this, fine. If it doesn't look like it, that's okay too. You don't have to adjust it unless you want to. And that's good enough, I'll do, oh no, that one's non-associative. And now that I said that, I wasn't paying attention myself. It remembered whatever I did last time with the plane, so it's still non-associative. That's okay, because that's what I wanted, but a lot of times you forgot that, you know what, that one wasn't supposed to be non-associative. In this case, it's okay, but that's also why it's a good habit when you go into a command, hit reset, because reset will put it back to being associative. All right. So, all right, I got that. Now I can kind of do something really quick like I did before. I can do an intersection. So same concept, intersect that new plane with that surface I made before. Okay. Then I'm gonna use that line to do a law extension, just like I did before. Okay, same type, pick a curve, reference vector is gonna be that plane. And it's already at 90 degrees, because that's what I used last time, which means it's going in the same direction as the plane. It's 90 degrees to the perpendicular. And for the lengths, 200 and then 50. 200 for the main length, and then 50 down here. And by the way, in case you don't remember this from law extension, sometimes, you know, the main length is going the other way. Remember, there's a couple of reverse directions up here. You can reverse the curve direction. So now, if I reverse that, the main length law is going downward. Okay. There's also changing the angle. That's not going to look too much different. Well, actually, if I had an angle, I'll just remind you this. Say it was at 30 degrees. Where to go? Oh, looking at it right on the edge. Couldn't see it because I was right on the edge. So sometimes if it's tilting the wrong way, you want it 30, but it's tilting the wrong way, you can tilt this thing or this thing. It's like a combination of those. Sometimes you have to get it to the right one. But anyway, that's supposed to be 90. And then I want it going up like so. Okay. So there's that surface. That's the dash panel surface. And a lot of this stuff I'm doing, we're going to be doing it over and over again in some of the other exercises. But I won't have to spend as much time on it, because I'm giving you all these little details right now that you'll just remember it next time. I have confidence you'll remember it. Now we're gonna blend these three together to make that main, what we're calling the main slab of the floor pan. Okay? There's a fillet here. My instruction says create a face blind between the horizontal slab and the footrest. Okay? Make sure you set the face rule to body faces, I'll get to that. But it says in the radius field, use the measure option. So what do I mean by that? So I'm gonna do a face blend. If I'm in surface, here's face blend. Face blend, not face blend. Face blend, which is a shape fillet in CATIA. And this is what I was talking about. Set that to body faces. Doesn't mean much right now, but in the real world, that's a good habit. That's usually a best practice at most companies that I've seen. Set that to body faces because, oops, I picked the wrong thing there. Remember what my favorite button is in NX right here? Delete, deselect all. If you pick something and you didn't want it, hit that button. It clears out that whole field. I wanted that face. Okay. It's gonna put a blend between this and this. The gray part, it's this blend right here. That's what I'm trying to match. Okay, so it's up above this, so I gotta flip that, double click. You have to go to the second field in NX to do the second selection. That's also body face. Oh, I was gonna say, body faces is good because later on, if these parts get more stuff added to them, it's gonna take the whole body every time you pick that. It's kinda like in CATIA, when you pick a fillet, it takes the whole fillet, whatever's involved in it. That's kinda what body faces does here in NX. Well, whatever, okay. So for the radius, and actually, now that I'm thinking of it, if there's one command that you really should make sure you reset to the defaults, it's faceplum, because there's so many options in here that you might have changed. I'm confident I did, because this software was reloaded anyway, I haven't used it yet. So, you know, a reset would be a really good habit before I started picking things, because that way I got all the normals, which would be like a rolling ball, automatic width, and a circular shape. Fill it, that's the normal one, constant radius, right? But for the radius, I told you to do the measure, okay? So I wanna measure that. How do I measure it on the fly? In the radius field, now in CATIA, you can right click here. In NX, you grab that little triangle, and there's the measure choice, okay? Some of you, if you haven't used NX in a while, this is a completely different measuring tool than what we used to have, okay? It seems really complicated. Once you start using it, you'll learn to like it, but it's pretty complicated. I'm gonna reset it, because by default, you're measuring an object. You can pick multiple objects, but you're measuring an object, which is like a face, or an edge, okay? Or well, for a point, you gotta set the point, but I wanna measure that face. And just real quick, just in case you haven't seen this, along the bottom here, there's a result. What kind of results do you wanna see, right? And I hit reset, so the ones that are turned on is, whatever I pick, it'll show me distances, it'll show me lengths, basically, curve or edge. And if it's face, it'll show me the area, the area or the volume. Well, I'm just gonna pick that face right there. That's on the gray part, okay? And it shows me, because it said show me the measures, it showed me the perimeter. I didn't care about that. If you turn that off, I just gotta pick it again. Oh, I gotta go back to it. If you turn that off, and well, unselected, start over. If you turn off that guy, and you pick the face, yeah, sure, that's how it's working. It's showing me that. Still showing me the perimeter. I wonder why it is. But anyway, I got what I needed. See, it says minimum radius of curvature on that fillet. 79.9851. Well, for our accuracy, that's 80. 79.98, that's 80. So I'm gonna hit OK. And really, I don't really want to be linked to that. So down in the settings, social media isn't there anymore. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna hit OK. Okay, it's not associative. You know what? Because it wasn't associative, it also didn't use the number. You know, there's another setting I'm missing. I can't remember where it is to make it, to make that setting lock to that part, but I didn't really want it. What did I say the measure was? Come on, you're all watching. What was it? 80. Okay. 80. So I'm just going to type it in. But it's still handy because I was able to measure. I didn't have to get out of this tool, go to the measure tool, write it down, and then come back to this. I can still measure it, make a note of it, and then come back and type it in. There is a way to actually make it link to it, even though we don't really want it linked. I can't remember how to do it. I'll have to play with it. But anyway, there's the fillet, 80 mil radius, right? And that made the face blend. It trimmed the original main slab, and it trimmed a little bit of that footrest. I'm gonna do the same thing here, up on the top. This one I'll do faster, because it's exactly the same. Body faces, I'll pick that one first, and because it's on body faces, see it grab the whole thing. Go up. This one I'll pick that face, go that way. I'll do the measure. Maybe it's before it. Maybe it's in preferences, I don't know. I'm not gonna worry about it, but, so I'm just gonna measure that. And that one does say exactly 80, so I'll hit OK. And it's already at 80 because of the last one I did, so I'm just gonna hit OK. That one was a little faster. So that is our main slabs, right? Now it says, we're gonna actually work on the tunnel. This one, I probably won't even do the entire one. I'm just gonna show you a few of the steps. And then it says, well, repeat that process for the other side. I'll show it to you briefly, but here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna work on the tunnel. That's, and actually not even the completed tunnel, if I remember right. We're just gonna make some slabs for the tunnel. The tunnel is this thing in the middle. There's a right side over here, kind of vertical walls, they're angled a little bit. There's the top, kind of horizontal, and then there's the left side, okay? We're gonna make slabs for those three walls. We're gonna make one wall going all the way across like this, one wall on the other side, and one wall across the top. All right? Well, kind of like we did before, we're gonna borrow that gray thing, okay? But we're gonna do that in the tunnel feature group. So I think what I like to do is make the last feature current, so the whole tree's current now. And FYI, I still only have one line there, I'm gonna hide that line. You can hide it in there. Go ahead and do a little eyeball. I could have right clicked out here. But it says create 3 new feature groups inside of tunnel. Go back to where it was. Create 3 new feature groups inside of tunnel, right side tunnel, left side tunnel, and top tunnel. I should have done that already too, but, oh well, I got it right here. Feature group, and I could do this now or pick it later. I can go to tunnel as the position, and then I'll do RS, tunnel, and then click here, RS tunnel. Okay, I'll hit apply. Now that sometimes shift things around like that, but it's okay because there's nothing in those, it makes it easier to move around when there's nothing in there. I'll make the second one, if I hit apply, this window stays up, that's all. So I'm going to tunnel, click in here, make LS tunnel. Apply that, and then make one last one in tunnel. Oh, top tunnel. Not too long, really. Okay. See how my 2 feature groups got mixed up? I'm gonna just grab this one. Actually, I'll grab that one called Sill Well Flange, and I'll drop it here. Now, I don't know if you remember this. See, if you look at this really close, when you're dragging things in the tree and you got feature groups like that, see that little black line there? Can everybody see that? If I slightly move my cursor, it changes. Sometimes the black line is all the way across that little folder, sometimes it's just up to the folder, but not under it, okay? If it's up to the folder but not under it, that means if I let go, that other feature group is gonna go inside of this one. If I go like that, that means it's gonna go after this feature group. I want the Sill Well Flange, which is what I'm dragging, I want that to go after the tunnel. So that folder I'm looking at, it's the tunnel. If I let go, see how the whole thing went after the tunnel, didn't go inside of it. So it's really subtle, you gotta move your cursor just slightly. If the black line would have been right here, then this feature group would have been sitting right here. Actually, I think we put it at the end, but inside of it. So anyway, something to know. You might be familiar with that from earlier classes. So now I got the tunnel feature group, I'll collapse that. This will go faster, we're not too much longer here, like I said, all right? So let's say it says right side tunnel, all right, so we're gonna activate it. That means right click, go to active. And then in this case, I have to create 3 planes at once for the 3 flat areas here. So there's like a flat right here, a flat right here, and a flat right there, and then there's blends in between them. So we're gonna make walls like we did, similar to what we did before. But I'm gonna start with planes. So I go to the plane command. It says use inferred. It'll let me do one, yeah, it'll let me do it there. I'm gonna put one right there, and again, the sizes in my pictures, it's a little different, so just so they're not overlapping each other, I'll make it a little smaller. But it says non-associative. Oh, that one, I remember I showed you can reset it, but I have to turn it back off. Okay, so there's one, and I thought of something else I was gonna show you. A non-associative plane, that means, if I go to double click it, it just says it's fixed. It's not tied to anything. It doesn't remember how it was made, because I don't want to be tied to that gray part. But it still shows it in the tree. So sheet bodies and planes, even if they're non-parametric, they're in the tree. Wireframe is not. I don't know why. I keep saying a lot of things, but I don't know why. All right, so I'll make that one, I'll make one here. And it looks like inferred is letting me do that one too. That one's at a weird angle all the time, but that's okay. That one. So that represents that middle flat, and then the last one, right here, I could actually be hitting apply, instead of okay. So I got 3 planes, and I'm gonna use those planes to help me line up directions. Yeah, because we're gonna use log extensions again. Now here's a picture. It says, it's kind of the same method we used before. I want to draw a line because we're going to make a log extension that we're going to make guide curves for log extensions. So I want one that represents that side wall on the right side of the tunnel, the little flat area. I also want one over here, and over here. These two lines, now that one's horizontal, those are vertical. But that's the best way to get lines that are kind of on the edges of those flats. So in other words, I want to make a line, and this is still non-associative, I haven't reset this, but this time it's for this flat, so I'm gonna pick right there. It really doesn't matter which endpoint, it's just that endpoint. That endpoint to the other flat endpoint right there. And it says to overbuild them a little bit. Now, you do want to overbuild them a certain distance because I'm gonna make a wall here on this flat, but I'm also gonna make a wall on that flat. And I want these two walls to overlap each other. So I'm making this one, it seems like a lot longer than it needs to be. But that's okay. It's better to be too long than not long enough. This one I'll just drag it a little bit. And the back one, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just try to make it about the same width that I got the other thing there. All right, so there's my first line, I'll hit apply. Over here, see the bottom edge on this one is not straight, but this edge is straight, so I'll use a line there. I'm gonna create a line. Right here. There. There. And it's gonna come down below the whole part like so. It's gonna come up above the whole part. And you'll see after you do this, we want these lines to kind of be consistent with each other, at least as far as how high they go. Well, these two lines, you'll see what I mean in a second. Let me apply. Instead of just babbling on without making sense, let me just make my third line, which will be through these 2 points, right here. It's the edge of this flat area, there. And see, I want to make them kind of similar. The 2 lines I made, I want to make the bottom of this one similar to the bottom of that one, the same thing with the top. And I'm grabbing the sphere here. See how these 2 lines are about the same height? It makes the life a lot easier if you make them about the same height. You can always change them later. You raising your hand or you just yelling?
Yawning.
Okay. Is it that exciting? No, I know it's not exciting. All right. Now that I've done it, in the instructions, now it says, now look in your non-timestamp geometry. There's 4 lines. It says line times 4. If you want to see them individually, you can unpack them. And now there's the 4 lines, right? So even if you make wireframe non-parametric, which means it's not in the history, it's always listed up there. Makes it easy to hide and show. Okay? Now I'm going to make log extensions. My log extensions tell you to make them all 90 degrees to the plane, like we did before, but drag them to be about that size. Or they should all be kind of the same height, right there. Now I changed the colors of them just so you can see 3 different walls there. But the long one in the back is like so. The middle one on the transitional angle is the purple or magenta one. Then I got the cyan color in the front. So in other words, 3 log extensions, 3 separate ones. This is all in the right side tunnel, by the way. Log extension. Pick a guide, I'll pick that, I'll do that one first, because it doesn't matter what I do first. For the vector, I'm gonna pick this plane, because it's the same thing. If I go 90 degrees to that plane, that wall is actually going along that plane. Maybe I'll reverse that and go up. Because I want the main length to go up. And actually the first one here, if I'm doing that first, what I really want is I want it to go about as high as those lines there. So I'm actually going to, I'm going to grab this arrow and make it go up. So it's roughly where those lines are. See that? These 2 lines. It doesn't have to be exact, but it makes life, you'll see in a minute, it makes life easier. It makes it look better if they're about the same. And then the bottom of this, I'll make it the opposite side extension here. Oh, because I got this one in there. For some reason, I don't know why. Drag that down a little bit so it's kind of like the bottom of the line. And you can go back and adjust all these if you need to. I'm just roughly trying to make everything the same size. So there's the first log extension. The second one, now this one, because we have the line this way, it's going to be going sideways. That's okay. So there's the guide. The reference is going to be that plane. Okay. And here's what I meant. I want them to overlap each other. So I'm going to make this one long enough so it crashes through that wall that I just made. Because we're going to put a blend in between them, so you want them to crash through each other. Okay? And this one too, it doesn't have to go too far, but that looks good. And it's going as high as that line I made, because the line is here. So this edge, I can't drag it, it's based on the line that I started with. But that looks pretty close to what I had before, so I'm gonna hit okay. So I got 2 log extensions, and then I'll make the third one. This last line's kind of hidden behind that guy that way, using that plane as my reference vector. Alright, I'll flip that one because the main area is gonna go that way. And this one too, see how those heights are about the same, and this one's going far enough this way, I don't know if you can see what I'm talking about. These 3 log extensions, that one, and this one, and the one I'm making, they all cut through each other, that's a good thing. Okay, it doesn't have to be that far in the front, but whatever. There, so I got the 3 log extensions, that's gonna be the right side, I'm gonna make the right side wall out of those. Okay, this one might be a little trickier because this fillet right here, I'm gonna fill it, see how they're like, there's a straight one, then it angles out, and then it goes straight again. I gotta blend where they meet here, and then blend where they meet there. The blend is this radius here, and then the other one's hard to see because it's behind things, makes it a little tricky. Well, let's try it. I'll go to face blend. Okay, I'll do these 2 first, this one and that one. So the fillet's kind of coming on this side. So if I pick that face, and I pick that face, and then I go to measure. Okay, this one's easy, I can pick it right there. That's the radius I want to measure. And it is a 500 millimeter radius, sounds good. So I'll type in 500. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna hit okay, I like it. Okay, so I blended those 2, and they are matching. You can see how it's marbled right there. That means, yeah, it's pretty much lined up on that gray part, that old gray part, so that's good. Now I just gotta do this side, which is a face blend between what I just made, and if it's on body faces, no matter where I pick it, it'll grab the whole thing. Grab it, right? That whole thing, and that one. Remember in NX, when you're doing a face blend, you have to manually go to the next field in the window. CATIA automatically goes to the second one here. You have to do it. Now this blend though, if I look at it from above, it's gonna be over here, on this side. Okay, so the arrows have to go the other way. I didn't pick that arrow, how did I never pick that arrow? That was weird. The radius on this one, let's see, if I do the measure, see that other stuff is still in the way. Might be able to, this might be one where you might want to measure it first, but I might be able to do this first with 3 dots. My cursor was in front of it. There it is, right there, see that? My cursor was in front of that face. So if I hit that, that's also 500. So after all that work, it's the same as the other one. See how it says 499.959. Do you see what I did there? For those of you who don't remember, when you're trying to pick something with your cursor, if you hover over things and hesitate, you get those 3 dots, and then you click, it shows you, in this, they used to call it the quick pick window, it goes over everything that was behind your cursor. And the one I wanted, that face I wanted, was one of these, right there. Actually, I already got it picked, okay? So that's a neat way to pick things, even if it's hidden, because it's behind something. So if I hit okay, there's my new right side wall. It's just one side, okay? Basically, what I'll do, because I know you're enjoying my soothing voice, but I'll just say this. You're gonna do the same thing on this side. The left side is just 2 faces though. The right side had 3 different flats. The left side only has 2 flats. This big one here, see how there's flat there and flat here, and then there's a radius there. It almost looks like the whole thing is flat. They are almost straight, but there is a slight bend there, and there is a radius in there. So when you're gonna make, like we did before, you're gonna make a plane on those 2 flats, draw lines on the edges of the gray solid, kind of like I show you here. And I made this line kind of long and that line kind of long the other way, because you want to make them long enough so they overlap each other, these 2 surfaces. So sometimes you got to make the lines a little bit extra long. But you overlap those 2, and then you'll make a fillet. You know what, I am going to show you one more thing. Because the top, that'll be I'll do it myself later, but the top surface, those guys you're going to make on the left side feature group. Okay? So I got the right side feature group. Actually, now that I said that, I'm supposed to name that last blend, I think, if I remember my instructions. Yeah, this last face blend right here that I made, that's the right side tunnel defined. abbreviate or whatever. As long as you type something like close to what I told you to type, and you know what it means, right? So then, the other one I was just talking about, you do that in the left side tunnel. I'll just briefly show you the top tunnel because it's quick. I'll show you most of it. I'll make that active, top tunnel. The top tunnel, now there is a flat here, and there's a flat here, and there's a flat there. But we're trying to make this parametric so that things are linked a little bit. That flat on the lower part of the top tunnel and the higher part of the top, we want to both basically be offsets of that main slab we made, okay? So the main slab that we made, I want to offset it upward to this height, right here. Then I'm going to offset it again to the other height, okay? But if I want to offset it, I'm trying to go down to that page here. Yeah. Where am I doing that? Oh. I want to offset that main slab, okay? But if I offset the main slab now, the main slab right here, it got trimmed. In NX, remember, it actually trims things. CATIA, it doesn't, it hides them, and the original will still be there and I could just show it. In NX, it only goes up to here now. So if I try to offset that original horizontal slab, it's only gonna offset up to there, but I need more. So what do? In NX, what you do in that case, you can't just show something. I wanna go back to a copy of the original. So what you do, we talked about this in NX2 class too, but you might not remember, or maybe you did in my class. You can go to the original one here in the tree, basically you extract a copy. It seems like, really I gotta do that every time I need to go back to an old surface that got trimmed? You do, but it's very fast, and they even made it user-friendly. You go to the original one, and you right-click on it, and you go right here, extract body here. Now this is just saying, well, if you wanna put it right here, it's gotta make that feature group active temporarily. Okay, yeah, I know. So you hit okay. And right after it in the tree, it made a copy. It's called extracted body, and it's the shape of the original one, before it got trimmed, okay? Now, I guess I don't have you rename it. If I was gonna rewrite this exercise, I would call that first copy of horizontal slab, but I don't tell you to do it, so I'm not gonna do it. But I now have a slab that does represent the original main shape. Now if I go to the left side, top tunnel here, I should say, now I can do an offset of this, of the, I should probably, well, I'll make sure I pick the right one. Hey, if I pick it over here, I'll get the right one. If I go to pick it here, I'll wait for the 3 dots. And then you want the extracted body, or you want the original? I want the extracted body, okay? I want to offset it upward. Well, how far? I don't know, but whatever it takes to get to there, because that's what I'm trying to match right there. So I can do a measure, okay? Measure object, you can say from this flat to that edge, and it's 125 mils. See that? Okay, so I hit okay. Now, see, that one did link to it. What did I do different? I don't know why that one's linked. And how do I know it's linked? It linked my measure there. It plugged it in and it linked it. I don't remember why. I'll figure out why and I'll let you know. I just don't remember why. But I don't want it linked. So it's got the right number, but see how it's gray and it's got a little ruler there? That means it's linked. I'm glad it happened because it's a good thing to show you. To unlink it, instead of the measure tool, you just go down here. Basically, it's called make constant. I wish it was something like break link. Make constant just means, all right, it's just a number. So it's 125, which is what I want, but it's not linked. That's good. And it is going up, make sure it's going up, hit okay. So there's the one wall. Okay, then we're gonna make one more like that to represent this flat. Okay, because for our top tunnel surface, I'm gonna need a flat, an angled wall, and a flat. Okay. So to make the other flat, I'm just gonna offset again. Now, even this is a question. Should I offset the offset I just made? You could, and it would work. But it's always been a kind of a best practice to go back to the original as much as you can. I want this offset and the one for up here, both to be coming from this guy, from the extracted one, right? It's better to have them kind of both, there's a name for that. Instead of a sequential one, or instead of a chain, they both go back to the same parent. So I'll make another offset. An offset of, this time I'll just pick it here. That one, up to gotta go up. And this one I gotta measure too, so I'll do a measure. I'll just look up here. I don't see anything on here that says keep associative, but whatever. And I could pick something like that line right there, or that little point right there. I'll pick that line. I guess I didn't pick the surface yet. Pick that surface. And that's 250. Now, if you're watching me and you're remembering what the numbers were, you don't have to measure. That one was 125, this was 250, but it's good to practice. So again, it's linked. I'll just say make constant instead of linked. It's 125, all right? So now I got two of the surfaces I need for the top. Actually, you know what? Because again, here, you're probably thinking, how much longer do I have to hear him? You're gonna make a plane on that transition area in the middle, and then you're gonna make a line, and then you're gonna make a law extension. So you'll have the first offset here, this law extension, and then the third offset. You'll blend them all together like that. Here's the first offset, here's the angle transition, law extension, and here's the other one. Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying? It's the same stuff you did before. If you have any troubles with it, just call me over. I wanna end this so you can, some of you are like, all right, I'm ready to get out of here. And then you can go. But, any questions? Make sense? Exciting? Okay. All right. I'm gonna actually work on mine too, because I'm doing it along with you.